Hi, I'm KS Garner, and you're listening to the Solo Nerdbird podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with Drew Edwards, the creator and writer behind the comic series Halloween Man, here to promote the Entropy Chapter 1 coming October 18th. Welcome back, Drew.
Well, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Well, again, thank you for coming back. It wasn't too bad the last time. Um, but outside my introduction, and for those who are new, who is Drew Edwards in his own words?
So I am a twice over Ringo nominee for Best Writer. I am a Best of Austin winner through the Austin Chronicle. I am a member of the Pan America Fellowship of Writers. And I am a lifelong enthusiast of Halloween and monsters and folklore.
So October is like your month, basically. Like you
Oh,
just
it's
type in,
it's go time. Like
yeah.
I have something going on pretty much every night this week. You know, the sad thing is I'm actually one of the projects that I have on the burner right now is I'm doing a prose book on Christmas folklore. So I guess I don't want to have any free time during the holiday season is what I guess it's going to end up being my fate in life.
Is it gonna be like you kind of slip in some Halloween stuff, like Before Christmas, kind of Halloween and Christmas at the same time?
Going to be called the 12 Monsters of Christmas, and it's so I do a lot of public speaking, and several years back before the pandemic, I was brought into a local bookshop to do a talk on Krampus. And what ended up happening when I was researching to do that talk is I discovered that there were a lot more monsters associated with the Christmas season than just Krampus. And it turned into this whole thing that's evolved into this passion project that I've now been working on every winter for like the last 5 years. Like pretty much the moment it starts to get a little overcast, I go back to that. But it's going to be an illustrated book, although it's mostly going to be prose. I'm working with a really terrific artist named Chandra Free to draw all the monsters in her signature style, and it's haven't found a publisher yet for it, but I'm zeroing in on a couple of prospects. And yeah, Christmas, but make it scary. I guess that's kind of on brand for me.
Uh-huh. Well, let's get back to Halloween Man. We'll talk more about the work and other stuff you do later. But Halloween Man. So, what is the series about, and what should readers expect from the Entropy Chapter 1?
So, Halloween Man is best described as the weird adventures of a zombie superhero and his sexy mad scientist girlfriend as they fight everything from the Invisible Man, the Loch Ness Monster, vampire dinosaurs, just normal people doing normal stuff. He eats other monsters, so he's sort of a apex predator of monsters. As far as entropy goes, the buzz term that I keep telling everybody for every interview I've done so far this month is superhero horror, which I guess Halloween Man always kind of falls into that niche, but this is kind of my version of every few years DC has a crisis, and every few years Marvel has a secret war or something like that. And this is kind of my version of that, because when I read the original, I'm dating myself here, but when I read the original Crisis on Infinite Earths when I was a kid, this whole concept of like worlds living and worlds dying and all these alternate realities being destroyed, that was a big concept for me, and I found it kind of scary. So this is me kind of pulling it into the world of monsters and Halloween Man, and also dealing on a personal level, like the idea of evil twins, evil duplicates, worst timeline kind of things, and the scary aspects of that. So it's both one of the biggest stories I've ever told, but also like all things with Halloween Man, it ends up being kind of character driven and relationship driven.
Mm-hmm. So, say one of our listeners loves what they hear about Halloween Man and wants to dive right into the series. Where should they start? Because I know it's like a lot of.
You're not wrong. I do very much try to be new reader friendly. Every new story has bios of all the characters and a synopsis of what came before. So if like a particular storyline sounds interesting to you, you should be able to just dive in. And I feel that way about Entropy as well. Like even though it's um a big story and it's rooted in some continuity, I would hope that people would also find it a decent enough starting place. That being said, since I'm a partnered with Global Comicx right now, like my entire back catalog is on Global Comicx, and if you want, you can go all the way back to the beginning and read the very first, Halloween Man stories from the early days on Global Comicx, and you could just read the whole thing in order, or you can bounce around. I mean, there's really no right or wrong answer there. I think comic readers, I think people don't give comic readers or people enough credit. When I was a kid, I didn't start with like the very first Spider-Man. Like I picked up what they had at the 7-Eleven and I started there. And I think readers can start with something that just looks intriguing to them if they want, and then go back or forward depending on their mood. But if you want to start with the new storyline, we do have you in mind. Like I said, bios, synopsis, you should be able to just dive in and enjoy.
Mm-hmm. So, with all of the influences that may have inspired Halloween Man, how do you maintain that this series is still your own with alongside your influences?
um so the thing is Halloween Man's an intensely personal thing to me. Like I remember talking about this the last time I was on your show. um Halloween Man's kind of my therapy. 2 decades ago, I was in a car accident that killed my twin, and that was incredibly scarring. And I needed something to give me focus and keep me going forward, and help with my mental health journey. And this comic book has been that. Like, I put a lot of myself into the writing, I put a lot of myself into the characters, and to know the world that Halloween Man takes place in is to know me a little bit. So I think there's a lot of discussion nowadays on social media about writer versus artist in comic. But I have worked a lot with a lot of incredible collaborators. I've been lucky to work with some really amazing artists, and they do all leave their imprint on it. But through it all, the most consistent voice is my own, because I have written every single script. Even when there has been a co-writer, I'm right there and I have final say. So um it is very much my baby. I love these characters and I love the world. And um so throughout all the different fingerprints that are on it, and as they say, it does take a village to raise a child. um I still have been doing the most parenting, I guess. Like and so the biggest imprint is still mine.
Uh-huh. So, since Halloween Man is very much not only I guess a part of you, but kind of is you since it's so intertwined with who you are personally. Has there been any changes in the creative process along with how, I guess, how you developed as you gotten older with alongside Halloween Man? Like, has there been any changes that you welcomed, or has there been any changes that you were kind of initially reluctant to doing, but eventually you accepted the transition?
Well, I do think it's become more of a story about, found family and self acceptance. And again, that kind of goes back to that mental health journey stuff that I'm talking about. Like initially, you know, it was very much about, I feel ugly, I feel damaged, this is how horrible I feel, this is kind of a testament to how I feel guilty about, being behind the wheel of a car that killed my best friend. And um, I don't think when I say that out loud, I think people would be thinking like, man, this comic book must be a drag, but it's not. Like it's you know, by most people's accounts, kind of fun. But the character of Halloween Man, the character of Solomon Hitch, is someone that if you look at like the earlier stuff, like very much does not like themselves. And I think in the more recent stuff, he's still a bit broody, but he likes himself a little bit more. And I think that's due to me becoming more comfortable in my own skin and everything. And I so we I guess reflect each other in that way.
I mean, yeah, I guess he just kind of Solomon just grew to, how can I put this? I guess became a new person and is living a new life and adjusting to that new life and
Yeah.
his condition, and then the new world that he's entering now, because that didn't exist before. So now it's kind of like, oh, this is his new quote unquote normal now. So
Yeah. That's
yeah.
a great way of putting it. Like I think in life, there's always these sort of crossroads moments where you transition from who you were in the past to who you're going to be going forward. And you know, that's very much something I think that's been reflected in my writing, particularly with these groups of, this group of characters is, how can we be the best versions of ourselves, but also like everybody is damaged. How do you live with that trauma that, you have, and become a person that can affect positive change in the world.
Uh-huh. So I keep coming back to the fact that you've written this, the series for so long, but I guess what advice would you offer to someone, or I guess how have you been able to maintain working on the series and like continuity issues and world building and things like that for so long?
Um, Continuity issues, like it's that with the fact that we have so much now, like so much story, I'm not like those happen. Aside from myself, like I'm always like going back and double checking old stories to make sure that we haven't contradicted each other. But I also work with a few editors. Russell Hillman, who is a brilliant writer in his own right, but also has worked on Halloween Man, a very, very long time himself. So he knows these characters almost as well as I do. But also my wife, she goes through and plays an editorial role and goes through all the scripts herself. So like that sort of stuff, like having people that you can trust to go through and make sure that the voices are correct, that you're not contradicting anything, that the world still makes sense. I think that's an important thing. People like to, I guess, kind of vilify editors in the writing process, but I actually think that they're really important. And if you're an indie person, it's really important that you find people that you can use in that role and that you trust, and that are, you can help make the hard decisions, when you need to make them, and also help, build you up when you're not sure about a decision too. So there's that. If, as far as like how my creative process may have changed over the years, like I think I'm just a more confident writer than I used to be. Like you know, I still am very collaborative. Like I always say that if I, didn't want to work with other people, I would be a novelist, because, part of the beauty of making comics is that it's words and pictures. And I do try to give my artists a lot of creative, freedom to leave their own imprints on the story. But I've also gotten better about, standing up for myself. Like if I think something is correct and the best move for a story, like I will voice that opinion. But beyond that, I don't, other than that, my skills getting better and my confidence getting better, I don't know that I would say my overall process is that different than when I was like 18, 20, thereabouts.
Uh-huh. It's interesting that you just said how if you weren't working in comics, working with other people, you'd be a novelist. And I think I'm a novelist because I don't want to work with other people. And that was because it's like everything how you're describing Halloween Man initially. I was like, how come you didn't write it as a novel? Why did you write it as comics?
Comics are what speaks to me. They were the first creative medium that I fell in love with. When I was a kid, I grew up in a very rural part of Texas. It's called Possum Kingdom. And there was not a whole lot for a kid to do. So what I would do is I would get on my bike and I would ride up to the library. And they had these big hardbound books with like old comics in them. And I just was fascinated by comics at an early age. And I really, for me, it's the best way to tell a story. I just love it. And I feel so passionate about it. I think, a lot of it is what, with anything creative, like passion is like probably the most important thing. Like you're going to gravitate to the medium that speaks most to you. Like the people that love novels, like they're gonna try and write novels. The people that love movies, they're going to they're going to try and make movies. Musicians, they're going to make music. And you can love more than one medium, certainly. Like I love movies, but I don't love them as much as I love comics. Like comics are what makes me feel the happiest.
Yeah, so outside of Halloween Man, specifically the Entropy Chapter 1, how well do you find balance in your life? And how do you typically manage your mental well-being when you become stressed, frustrated, or overwhelmed?
I'm managing my stress a lot better than I think I ever have. And one of the things I think that um, has been really helpful is I've been seeing the same therapist for almost a decade now, and she gave me this really good advice, and she calls it checking the facts. So if I start to think like, oh, nobody likes me, I'm pissing everybody off, I'm annoying, um, you know, she always tells me to take a step back, step outside of myself, and just look at the situation in the terms of raw data. And that ability to sort of turn myself off and just look at it as if it were happening to another person, it has been a really effective tool to sort of gauge my behavior, but also um, it's helped me understand, a lot of the things that I get stressed out about. It's just happening in my head, because I tend to overthink everything. And this has allowed me to, sleep better at night because I realize, most people are just out living their life. Like there's no conspiracy against me. Most people aren't putting as much thought into the things that I say or do as I am. So, I think that's an important thing for people to realize, especially high anxiety people like myself, is that most people are just trying to get by in their own life. They're not thinking that much about you. Like even if you do annoy them, like they're probably only thinking about you in the moment. They're not thinking about you like when you're not around. They're busy doing their own thing. And I found a lot of peace in that. You know Again, I this is not a skill set I would have found on my own. It is absolutely, therapy is a wonderful thing. And I think that a lot of people should try it more, because you do, talking about your problems with another person, you do develop skills that you wouldn't necessarily develop just left to your own devices.
Yeah, I love that about checking the facts, because when I think of myself, I'm just like you said, I'm just a person existing in the world. I'm just trying to remember to get more than 4 hours of sleep and make sure I eat more than once a day, you know. But then when I think of the other people I interact with, oh, like you said before, oh, do they hate me? Do they find me annoying? And maybe in that moment, but outside of that, they're not thinking about you. They're just trying to live their own life. So
Yeah.
I just need to start thinking like that to help my own self.
It's an incredibly liberating thing, because it's allowed me to focus on myself and not so much me thinking about what other people think about me. Because when I was younger, I would get to these points where I was so paranoid. I just thought like the whole world was against me. And you know I had to realize that I'm far more anonymous than that, and I think that that was freeing for me.
Hmm.
And yeah, I do think it's a useful thing for lots of people to practice, because it is really easy to get lost in your own head and think about every interaction that you've had with people every second of every day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But is there anything else that you want to touch on about Halloween, man? The Entropy Chapter One that we may have missed as a whole?
Yeah. Speaking of collaborators, this it has an amazing cover by Matt Frank. It's got amazing artwork on the interior by Jason Wilson, with equally amazing colors by John Gholson, and equally amazing letters by the wonderful April Guadiana. As you said, it comes out October 18th. It's going to be on the Global Comics digital comic platform for, at least initially. It's going to be up there for free. So if you want to check this out, you can check it out, and you can check out a bunch of other Halloween Man comics that we do also have for free on there right now. So please, join us, for some seasonal, spooky good times.
Uh-huh. And where can people find you online, other than Global Comics? And you already discussed another project that you're doing. Did you want to elaborate more on that, or are there other projects you're working on as well?
That's a long ways off.
Mhm.
So, I am working on a lot of things right now. Got a lot of irons in the fire, but I kind of have to keep mum on them. But if you wanna, when those are announced, if you want to know about them, the best place to find me on Instagram, I am Drew_Halloween. On Twitter, because I refuse to call it by that other name. I am Halloween Man Com, all lowercase, all one word. And on Facebook, you can find me. I am the only Drew Edwards in Austin, Texas. And please drop by any one of those. Say hi. I like it when people say hi. And, you know, talk comics, talk monster movies, talk whatever with me, because I won't bite. I promise.
Right. Aren't you, so you do your own podcast, right? What's the name of that? You want to plug that too?
Oh yeah, I should. Thank you. I am a cast member on the Castle of Horror podcast. That is a weekly horror movie review podcast that I do with three other people: Tony Savaggio, uh, Julia Guzman, and Jason Henderson. And we are actually doing a series on witches right now, on witch movies, just for Halloween. So you can come check out. We have over 400 episodes, so there's definitely something for everyone on there.
Oh wow. That's a whole lot. It's just like Halloween Man. There's a huge catalog that you can dive into.
Yeah, I don't like free time. I like keeping busy.
Yeah, me too. All right. Again, I want to thank Drew Edwards, the creator and writer behind the comic series Halloween Man, for joining us here today to promote the Entropy Chapter 1, again, coming October 18th on Global Comics. All of Drew's socials and website, as he just said, will be listed in this episode's details for those who are interested. Again, I am KS Garner, and you've been listening to the Solo Nerd Podcast. Thank you.